when leaders make a decision, you probably expect them to stand up for what they decided before. Some of you already might now think, well, I don't expect that anymore because I experienced too much of, let's say, different behavior from what you just said. And that is exactly the problem we're going to talk about today. I don't want to talk about spinelessness or leaders being spineless, how many of them are, or too many of them are. We're going to talk about how faint-hearted leaders are going to damage your organization, the reputation of your organization, especially the people in your organization. Because unfortunately, what we saw in the last couple of weeks was an exceptional amount of leaders not acting up to what they promised, what they do in the first place. I just give you a couple of aspects that we saw before. So first, it's Pride Month, and you probably saw that many companies now took out the rainbow colors as they do every year. Pinkwashing is pretty common. Some properly act on diversity, however, many of them do not. And with a couple of large organizations, put rainbow colors up, rolled it back a couple of days later, just because a mob of anti-diversity people were yelling at them online. And that is not the only aspect I'm talking about. When organizations say we're going to become more sustainable, and they say on social media, oh, look at our sustainability program, and someone screams, whoa, all leftist socialist nonsense, blah, blah, blah. And suddenly it disappears from their marketing. No one talks about that anymore. When you suddenly say we produce in a sustainable way, suddenly people say, well, but what about the profits? Oh, yeah, maybe just don't put that to the front because, shareholder value. So we roll back this. This goes to an absurd level. The British Library posted in honor of Pride Month about a fish that is able to change sex. And that is a biological fact. It can. And because trans folks went wild on Iran, the British Library took down the post from social media to avoid the conflict. Whoever is the leader of British Library, please take a 101 class in leadership because you failed on every single level. By the way, again, it's not the first time that we saw that with certain institutions. At the moment, we see that leaders in serial cases fail. So how to deal with that, how to do it better. And we're going to talk about a very clear process. If you have something in mind where you say we're going to step up, we're going to make a step forward, and we're going to publicly communicate what we're going to do, you need to prepare yourself properly. You cannot just say, here's a rainbow color, and now everything's fine, because that's not as easy as it is. So step number one. When it comes to finding the right decision, making the right decision, first you have to focus on what are you going to do. And I want to be crystal clear, you have to do more than one step at a time. The amount of companies that told me, oh yeah, Pride Month, but at the moment we're focusing on fair trade. So we first do fair trade, so we can't do Pride Month. We have to focus. And then you come up with limited resources, blah, blah, blah. So when you say you focus on fair trade, which means you give people a bit more money, and at the same time you say, oh, but we can't advertise human and equal rights, you're contradicting yourself compared to what you want to communicate in the first place. If you're unable to handle multiple aspects of communicating important matters at the same time, you disqualify yourself as a leader. Because during daily business, you handle hundreds of tasks every week. And by the way, simultaneously. Of course, you prefer not to do that. However, with the amount of people that work in organizations, you see that you simply need to be able to handle multiple tasks. And it's the same here, exactly the same. Step number two, so we are still talking about the first aspect here, how to make the right decision. The second aspect in how to make the right decision is what is the foundation? What is behind that you want to do? And I mean the scientific level. Are your leaders speech ready when they get questioned by the general public? No matter if it's on social media, or in private circumstances, or during a press conference, or during a meeting. If they just say, oh yeah, we have this program, I don't really know. We have lots of things going on, so I don't know. That is the worst thing that can happen to you, because anyone then knows it is not about doing something right. It's only about marketing and portraying yourself in a certain way that obviously has no substantiation. And of course, you also have to look at which effects, positive and which effects in a negative way, might happen. And then you have to train your leaders professionally how to handle that. So when you, for example, step up for equal and human rights, someone will always come up with a so-called whataboutism, which means they just pull up something else which has no context to what you're doing right now, only to distract that you're actually doing the right thing. So, for example, when you say we help people who fled their countries to get integrated into society. So we help refugees welcome. Someone will immediately show up and say, oh, well, you don't do anything for homeless people. And if you then would do something for homeless people, they will say, but you don't do anything for the unemployed. And when you do something for the unemployed, but you don't do anything for children. They always pull up the next group where they perceive that you should do something. These whataboutisms, you need to be able to professionally handle them and then talk to these people, because there is a certain limit of communication that we offer, but only a certain limit, because we do not continuously play with a mob of unsubstantiated, clueless people who think that just because they can blast something out on the internet, they need to be dealt with in a polite and professional manner. Some people just need to be removed from the comment section because the only thing they want to spread is hate. And sorry, we don't have time for that. And by the way, if you now say we should talk to everyone because we can convince everyone by facts, you have not spent much time on the internet, I guess, because obviously some people cannot be convinced by facts. So that's step number one, how to make the right decision. Step number two, how to get it all into practice. So how do you go from the theory into real world practice? So first you have to decide which channels are we going to communicate on. And by the way, your leaders need to know these channels. When someone says, oh, on Facebook you did this, or on Instagram you did that, and they say, oh, I am not really a social media person, that portrays your management or your leaders in a pretty ignorant way, because people will say, oh, you have these amazing channels of communication and your senior executives don't know what's going on there. They're not really committed, are they? And also it makes your management look pretty daft, pretty backward facing, pretty old fashioned, pretty not being serious about what they do. And then, of course, you have to communicate these channels and make them known in your organization, which is called internal marketing, and outside your organization, which is called external marketing. If you do events, and I strongly recommend you to do them, please focus on having proper events. I tell you how an event should not look like. Let's stick to Pride Month. You say, oh, here's Pride Month, so we're going to take a meeting room. Someone puts a rainbow flag somewhere in the corner, and then you can just arrive there. And we pour free alcohol on you, because no one complains ever if alcohol is there for free, by the way. Alcohol does not need to be involved. So you normally get some free food, free alcohol, free non-alcoholic drinks. Then someone pops up, gives a speech of 4.5 to 7.5 minutes of incredibly bland corporate statements. And of course, the speaker was not paid professionally. It's not a professional host. And then you wonder why your events do not get the acknowledgement you expect them to get. And you wonder why you receive criticism and no one takes you seriously with what you do. Because what you do is nothing else than marketing and wasting people's time. When you have an event, first aspect is you need to know something about the reason. Why do you do that? So, for example, when you send someone from your senior executive team to a Pride event and someone says, oh, what do you think about Marsha P. Johnson? And then your answer is, oh, yeah, I know her. How's she doing? That clearly says, I have no idea about Pride, but someone sent me here to wave a rainbow flag, smile a bit, and pretend that we care. And by the way, if you don't know who Marsha P. Johnson is, now you have some homework to look it up after this podcast and after you finish listening to it. So first, you need to know that there is a proper reason why you do these events. Get knowledgeable people in. And then you need these events to be hosted by someone professional, which, by the way, means that they're going to ask you either for a professional fee or for a donation to an organization, or both. And you will pay that. You would never say, oh, we need amazing salespeople. Or what about getting someone in for free? You wouldn't say that, because you know that you do not get any professional person in for free. And by the way, when you say, oh, we care so much about human rights and equal rights and Pride Month, and by the way, how do we get people here for free? That shows that you do not care in the slightest. And when you then get support on the matter, then you need to show how you properly supported. What are the actions that you actually took, except waving a rainbow flag and hiring a float for Pride? And that's a question many organizations are unable to answer. So you have some homework here now as well. The third aspect then is how to deal with events that might happen or incidents that might happen. Because one thing is 100% guaranteed, criticism will happen. And by the way, that is not due to Pride Month or due to sustainability or due to someone screaming woke. No matter what you do, when you talk about doing something, no matter what you do, someone will not like your decision, which is why you have, in the first place, to do a full stakeholder and target group analysis. So who do you want to address? Who are the stakeholders? Talk to them, do it properly, because then you are fully prepared to what might be their concerns, what needs to be addressed, and how do you proceed from there. What you also use is the so-called argumentative baseline. The argumentative baseline is something that is a general point of view that no reasonable person could disagree with. So I give you an example. If someone says, why do you do Pride Month? You could do something for homeless people. And then you say, Pride Month is about equal and human rights. We as an organization stand up for every human being being able to live the life according to who they truly are and face a life in democracy and freedom without the fear of being persecuted. When someone has a say against that, they are not up for discussion with you. They only want to rant. These are people who are fascist. They are not in the democratic spectrum. They have no interest except I am, and normally they are white, male, straight, cisgender. I want to have it my way, and everyone else should get out of my way because my way or highway. Very important here is that this argumentative baseline must be very carefully chosen. And as soon as someone has a go against the argumentative baseline, there is no discussion from there. You do not back up. You do not step away. You do not undo everything you've done before. The argumentative baseline is a very clear line that you draw. And as a summary from where we are here, and the summary so far is that you have to see every decision you make means you decide in favor of something, a certain group or activity, and against something else. And by the way, you probably heard that, or you probably know that no matter what you do, no matter what you decide, no matter how much you communicate, there will always be someone who says, well, I think that you should have done something different. It's called opportunity cost. Opportunity cost means you do something and you don't do something else. That happens in every single business. You deal with it every single day. And it's the same here. However, undoing everything you've done before has massive consequences. There is one core question that you have to answer. And this question is, what are your activities besides generating profit? And now, of course, some people might say, well, sorry, we are a for-profit organization. Profit is important to us. And by the way, you're entering open doors here. I'm a self-employed entrepreneur. I'm as much in for profit as anyone can be. There's nothing bad with profit. However, are we talking about short-term profit, or are we talking about something which is focused on sustainability for mid and long-term profit? And by the way, if now some excuse shows up from the senior executive, you know that your probably so committed board member is not there for the next 10 years. They know I get a bit of a bonus. I'm here for 2, 3, 4 years. I'm going to maximize that bonus and then leave. So they are in for their personal gains and nothing else. And by the way, if you, without any kind of authenticity and any kind of true interest on the matter, if you act non-sustainably, then you will damage the numbers and the results that you pretend to care about. Because as soon as this happens, suddenly you undo what you've done before. So, for example, pride flag, here we are, rainbow colors, and then you roll back on it because people were yelling on the internet. Then people who are very well organized now from the LGBTQI plus community will organize and keep you out of important aspects, important decision-maker moments. They will keep you out of the market at more and more cost. And by the way, that's not even you that people organize. And by the way, since the internet, these people have a voice. It was Harvey Milk in San Francisco who was the very first one who made a list of every homophobic restaurant in certain streets and told people not to go there. So these restaurants had to close down. So these activities are not even new. And by the way, the ranting mob on the internet, mostly people who have a lot of time at their hands because they're normally not working. And let's say education is a while ago, politely said, if it ever happened with them. They always seem to be very, very present. However, if you as a leader are unable to handle criticism, you need to reconsider if you are able to provide leadership. You need to reconsider if you should be a leader. You need to reconsider if you are suitable for any kind of leadership position. Because as soon as you undo what you've done before, people will lose trust in you. The trust towards leaders already is low enough. No employee, by the way, will follow you in the future because they know no matter what you do, you will always act opportunistically. You will always be the opportunist in the room. So there is zero trust towards you from that moment onwards. And you, by the way, harm organizations that are not even part of your bad decision. Many people today already say, I don't trust any leaders anymore. I worked in 2, 3, 4 organizations. They were all the same. So when the 5th leader shows up and say, I am totally trustworthy, I'm going to wait for at least a decade where I see sustainable activities. And before that, I'm not going to trust you at all. And that already is a massive issue that we have in today's, not only society, but in today's business world. The question that you have to face is, are you able to handle criticism and stand up for your decision based on facts, evidence, and science? Because if so, congratulations, you should be a leader. And if you say, yes, but, then you need to reconsider if you are in the right position when you are a leader right now. And of course, there's more about this, but first I have to say thank you. We have a new record. This podcast reached the highest ever ranking in the country that we ever had. Remember, we had the top 10 positioning in Ireland, and then now we were top 5 in Austria. So it's a top 5 podcast now. It's getting pretty scary right now because I see how many people are listening, because the other record we now broke is more than 70,000 people listen to these podcasts, downloaded them, took them in the car, on their mobile phone, listening to them at home. I never expected this. This podcast is run by me sitting at my laptop based on content only, with science as a backing, and talking into my notebook. And you seem to like the content. And by the way, I'm doing exactly this right now. I'm sitting here talking into my notebook, into my laptop. And I'm sitting here in Berlin with a view of Alexanderplatz, so in central Berlin, before I fly to London tomorrow and then fly on to New York City. So I can't thank you enough. So thank you very much for listening to this, taking the time. Thank you very much for spreading the word, posting about the podcast, sharing it with friends. It is absolutely amazing. And there is so much more to come. So first, of course, when you now have anything to discuss, which of course is to be expected, feel free to contact me anytime. nb@nb-networks.com is my email address. Just drop me a line and then we can have a chat via email, on the phone, or Zoom, or however you like, and discuss your remarks, opinions, or questions, or whatever you have. If you have something very specific, by the way, you need a training session, speaking or coaching, whatever else, feel free to contact me as well, nb@nb-networks.com. And by the way, if you now think, I'm going to email him and ask him if he's giving me a free gig at my organization, probably listen a bit closer to this podcast and you know the answer already. I already volunteer in many different occasions. 10 days per year, I give away for fundraisers, charities, etc. So for non-profit organizations, these 10 days per year are already gone for this and for the next year. So I'm looking forward to hearing from you via email, looking forward to the amazing discussions we're going to have. One aspect I always recommend, because there was a demand and we now follow up with the demand. People asked if we can have a Q&A session. And yes, there is a Q&A session now. This Q&A session means you can log into a room and then in a safe space, ask me any questions you like about leadership or certain topics or the podcast that you listen to. And when and where this podcast will be, you can only know via the leadership letter. When you go to expert.nb-networks.com, you can put in your email address there. And then you only receive one email, which is 100% content, guaranteed ad-free. There's an ad-free guarantee. Every Wednesday morning, you receive just one email. Go to expert.nb-networks.com, sign up there, and then we see each other soon in your inbox. And the last aspect I always say is the most important one: apply what you heard in this podcast. Because only when you apply what you heard, you will see the positive change that you obviously want to see in your organization. I wish you all the best doing so. If you need any help, just let me know. Always available and at your fingertips 24/7, helping you anytime. And at the end of this podcast, there's only one thing more for me to say. Thank you very much for your time.